Okay, what's up guys? Wrath2501 here, and welcome to my second video in my tour through the world of Warcraft. Now today we're going to be covering what you'll be doing through levels 60 through 70, and we'll be doing a little bit of exploring through the Outlands zone, which is basically where you'll be doing all your leveling. Now, if you're wondering what all that friggin' noise is over there, it's actually the first thing you're going to see when you step through the impressive dark portal that you see behind me. Now, what you see over there is a really intense fight. Now, as soon as you step through the portal, your first instinct is going to be to jump in, go down there, and start kicking some ass. Well, that would actually be a very... Now, the first thing you're probably going to want to do as soon as you step through the portal is to go down there into that big melee and start whipping some ass. Well, that would be a very bad idea. The enemies there are way too powerful, but you do get something else to, damn it. Now, your first instinct, as soon as you step through the dark portal and see this amazing fight going on, you'll want to go down there and start whipping some ass. That would be a very bad idea. Now, the first thing you're going to have to do is do some quests in this area, as this is your first, sort of like a mini quest hub, and in which case you're going to get the ability to fly. You're going to be able to start flying around instead of just running around your slow mount. So, once you get the ability to fly, you'll be able to head off to your first quest hub here in the Hellfire Peninsula, which is what this part of Outlands is called. Now, as you can see, you can now fly in Outlands, and you don't have to just use a ground mount. This allows you to get places a lot faster, not just because flying mounts are faster, but because they can travel in a straight line, don't have to worry about cliffs and stuff like that. Now, what you see here, it will be your first quest hub, this little rundown, beat-up outpost. But don't worry about it, you only need to be here for a couple of levels. And once you reach level 62, you can head off to the real meat of the expansion. You can head off to the capital city for this area, which will be basically a hub where all the players of both factions will gather, and you can interact with both Horde and Alliance players. So let's go check that out, shall we? Now, one thing you're going to notice right here is this thing is called a Fell Reaver. These things are extremely dangerous. Do not approach them. In fact, you might want to stay away from them by whenever you're doing any questing, because they will kill you. This thing is basically a raid boss, which is a high-level monster and extremely dangerous. Do not fight them. Maybe come back once you've gone through a couple expansions. You can get your revenge and kill them, but until then, just stay away from them. Now, the next stop on our little tour here through Outlands is Thrash City. This is the basically only city in all of Outlands, and it's where you find a lot of amenities like your bank and your auction house. This is so you don't have to go all the way back to Stormwind for it. You can get anything here that you would need for your appropriate level. You don't really need to do a lot of traveling. You might want to set this to your home for like a little while, but you don't really need to. Now, this is a major questing hub, so there's a lot of stuff to do and a lot of things you can go and do, but you don't really want to do a lot of leveling around here because this can get kind of tedious and boring. But once you get enough levels, you're going to want to head off to what is considered to be the best zone in all of WoW. Oh, just a little side note, there are 2 extra factions you can join here called the Aldor and the Scryers, but they were important back during the days of when Burning Crusade was the current expansion, but they're pretty much useless now. This is one of their places right here, so you can pretty much just ignore them. And we're going to be heading off to what most consider to be the best zone in all of WoW. And here we are. Welcome to Nagrand. Most people consider this to be the best zone ever in all of WoW. They're not entirely wrong. There is a lot to do. There are a lot of different kinds of quests here. There is a lot of story involved in this area. And it just looks amazing. I mean, it looks just so cool. I mean, look at that. Just floating islands and things everywhere. I mean, that's just amazing. And another little geographical feature of Outlands, as you can see right there, is Outlands is actually just a bunch of rocks floating in the middle of space. So I think if you go over there, you can die. I don't know if you can actually fall over there. I think there's like I think there might be an invisible wall or something, but there's a lot to see, a lot to do, and there's even a major PvP, player versus player, hub here. It's a town that players often fight over, though I don't recommend you go there if you're just coming into Outlands, because it's often patrolled by max level players, which just really don't have anything better to do than to pick on low level players and pick fights. So I recommend staying away from the PvP area, unless there's nobody around, in which case you can steal it and claim it for your faction, which is always fun. Now the next zone we'll be looking at here is called Zangarmarsh. As you can see, it's very shroomy. Mushrooms growing everywhere. Do not eat them. It's not really that much of a intense questing hub. There's some interesting stuff here, though a lot of people just tend to pass it over in favor of other zones like Nagrand. But it looks kind of cool, and if you get the chance, it's definitely worth exploring, at least on a flying mount. And it actually connects to probably what I think is one of the most interesting zones in all of WoW. And you can see that in the distance, and we'll be exploring that in a moment. Now, if you're a Horde player, you'll most likely be coming to this zone, which is called the Blade's Edge Mountains, which is pretty aptly named, and this looks pretty cool. I think this is one of the coolest looking zones in WoW. I mean, look at these things. It looks like you're flying through the body of a gigantic dead monster or something. Anywho, unfortunately for Alliance players, there isn't really a lot to do here, and the quests are kind of boring. But Horde players will see some interesting lore and get to experience some really interesting things in this quest, in the questing hubs they will find here. And look at that. I mean, this just looks so freaking weird. So it's definitely worth coming to the Blade's Edge Mountains at least once if you're an Alliance, you know, just to fly over it and explore it. And if you're a Horde player, I definitely recommend the questing here. It's fun, and you get to see some interesting story. Now, out of all the zones in WoW, I think this one is the most interesting, though it's not one of my favorites, really, in terms of questing. But I do find it interesting. This is the Nether Storm, and as you can see, yeah, it's very stormy here. And I think it's interesting just because it's so out of place in WoW. I mean, there's so much weird stuff. I mean, look at, that's a goblin town, and they're building a rocket to fly into space. There are these domes that are filled with jungle and actually have dinosaurs in them, like Jurassic Park or something. And there's just all this really weird, alien-looking, super advanced technology, which really doesn't fit in with the typical medieval look that you see in World of Warcraft. You know, and I think because it's out of place, it just looks really interesting. And to me, this is just the most interesting of all the zones in WoW. Now, one of the things that makes it especially weird is what we're coming up right here. You see those buildings coming into focus in the distance? Those aren't buildings. Those are spaceships. I am not kidding you. Those are friggin' spaceships. Now, if you want to know more about them, I recommend just looking it up. You can look it up on YouTube or something, or the WoW Wiki or something like that. But this is just really friggin' cool. I mean, friggin' spaceships out here in World of Warcraft. I mean, that's just cool. I mean, we're fighting aliens and stuff like that. Now, here we are in the last zone we'll be exploring today. And this is called Shadow Moon Valley. As you can see, this is a very hellish zone, even more so than the Nether Storm, and it's pretty cool. There is some interesting both Alliance and Horde quests you can do here. If you're a hunter, you can find some interesting pets here, and it's dominated mostly by this massive friggin' volcano in the center. There's actually some interesting stories behind it. You can see the falling fire. You know, I mean, this whole friggin' zone just has this air of menace, and that's just really interesting. And you might be doing some questing in here. Not very likely though, because it's likely before you even get here, you'll already be at level 69 or 70, and you'll even be moving on to the next zone. I mean, the next expansion area. Well, everyone, that was Outlands, the Burning Crusade expansion. I hope those of you who are avid WoW players thought this was a little bit nostalgic. Those of you who are new WoW players, I hope you found this a little bit helpful in deciding what zones you want to explore and quest in. And next time, we're going to be going off to the lands of Northrend, seeing what you'll be doing through levels 70 through 80, and we'll be going through the Wrath of the Lich King expansion, which many people consider to be the best expansion ever. And I don't know, maybe they were kind of right. I mean, I did enjoy what I did there. So, like, comment, and subscribe, guys. I hope you enjoy this, and tune in next time. I'll see you guys next time.